Hey, it's the Chief with Bonding with Board Games, and it's HAMTAG.
HAMTAG!
All right, now we got to explain that. Bonding with Board Games. We've switched over a little bit, gone kind of independent, so do me a favor, go subscribe if you're watching this. Just pause, go subscribe, and I'm even going to have a link down in our kind of comment section or further information that's going to also tie into my other channel, which is a Scotch review show where you can watch me do some yoga and scotch.
Right.
You've seen the yoga?
No.
Okay, it's you may not want to see it. I'm wearing tight clothes and I'm not flexible at all. All right, now where's everybody been real quick? We've been gone for a while. You just had a fun time at WBC.
WBC, I went to the ASL tournament up in Kansas City, ASL tournament down in Dallas, the Texas ASL.
Now, weren't you going to Essen or something?
Yeah.
What have you been up to?
Play your Agamis.
There you go. Well, you love those. What have you been up to?
Summer softball coaching.
I got to meet your dad, 82nd Airborne, all right, and summer softball coaching. And that's about it. I was in Pittsburgh and I actually was doing a whole bunch of Scotch stuff with an importer and all kinds of cool stuff there, but enough on that. So today we're talking about World War II East Front games. Top 5. You got any Russian you want to throw out?
Nie ty jest Maczedela.
Well, there you go.
Очень хорошо.
Wow. Net.
Actually, what I said, he was kind of rude.
Really? You said something rude. All right. Someone translate that in the comments for me. Let's go ahead and just start with, we're going to do our top 5.
Okay, my top 5. First, I have a little disclaimer.
Okay.
Something that is not on my top 5 are the Operational Combat Series games that were by gamers, now done by Multi-Man Publishing. There's many of the OCS games are devoted to the Eastern Front. There's Case Blue, that's like one of the Grail games on Board Game Geek. There's Baltic Gap, Guderian's Blitzkrieg, Hube's Pocket. Those are all great Eastern Front games, but I decided to go with something else only because the games I picked are a little more playable in a limited number of sessions. When you play those, especially the big campaign games, they go on for a long time. I like them. I've got a game of Sicily going on right now in the OCS, so those are not in my top 5, but they are in my head. My number 5 is Red Barricades. That's the first historical game that was put out for Advanced Squad Leader. I picked that as my number 5 because it really gives you the feel of the Eastern Front tactical combat, the elite Russian forces fighting against the rabble inside the city. They're dug in, they've got cellars, but you're trying to dive bomb, bring in your limited tanks, even though they're at a disadvantage. So Red Barricades to me really is the Eastern Front tactical feel for me. So Red Barricades is my number 5 East Front game for World War II.
Cool. I'll go next. And side note, did you see in the comments when we did like best or top 5 2-hour game, there was someone that commented they want us to now do like top 5 1 month or longer game.
No, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, that was kind of neat.
Okay.
I immediately thought of you guys.
Okay.
So we'll put that on the list to do because I'm thinking, I don't know if I've played one of those, but I'll work into it. For me, it's a game from Columbia Games, block game, East Front 2. Really focuses in on supply. You've got you're moving large groups of blocks which represent operational, or is it even strategic level?
It's strategic.
Yeah, it's whole strategic level where you've got to keep your supply routes open. There's a lot of pocketing going on, which is really nice. And East Front 2 from Columbia Games, block game. And I got a thumbs up from you. Is that your next one?
No, that's not.
Ooh, it's showing up later maybe? Okay, go ahead.
Keep the suspense going.
Yeah, there you go.
My number 5 is Red Winter by GMT, designed by Mark Mazicki and put out in 2012. I had to write this down. I actually had to write it as my Facebook friend how to pronounce this. It covers the Battle of Tolvajärvi. I hope I got that.
Finland.
Yes. Russian versus Finns. The ski troops and all that. It's an operational game. It has about 16 scenarios going from like 30 minutes to the full campaign. It kind of reminds me of a throwback to the older games, but it's not simple zone of control chess and add your odds. It's got a lot of clever mechanics, but there's just something, I don't know, really clean, and it's not a difficult game. Part of it, I think, is I've always said this is the best rule book if you were to compare how complex it is versus how good it is. Best rule book I've ever read. Got a brilliant, like 54-page playbook that just about's worth the price of the game by itself. Designer notes, background. You can tell this is a lifelong love for him. It's a pretty clever system. He's implementing parts of it in his new game, Operation Dauntless. I'm saying, is that it? I think it. So.
Didn't the Finns hold them off successfully?
Yes. And it's very asymmetrical too. Russians have a lot of power, but the Finns have a lot of mobility advantages. Russians aren't as adapted to the freezing conditions. You'd think they would be, but they weren't. So you're building campfires at night while the Finns are raiding you. The Finns are a little better for close combat in this. So it's very asymmetrical, which is really what makes it shine.
Ski troops, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they did a great job with their whole mountain unit.
So number 5, Red Winter.
I'm just making sure you said operational, but when you talk about building campfires and hand-to-hand combat, that sounds more tactical.
Yeah, it's not really as much facing. I don't know. It's somewhere like a small operation, large.
Okay.
I usually think of tactical as you're hiding behind a tree.
Oh, okay.
So there's forest in
Squad
this.
level tactical is what you're thinking of. But yeah, I do see there's an actual counter that shows like a bonfire.
Okay. All right. So my number 4 game, maybe some grief over this, is the Hell of Stalingrad. This is a card game where you are fighting for the city of Stalingrad, the various parts of it, Mamayev Kurgan and the barricade factories, Pavlov's house, things like that. But it's just you're playing cards that are basically, you're deploying units and then you're trying to kill units. It's a very attrition-oriented game. Very almost garishly colorful, but there's a lot of colorful things going on the board. You're fighting as you're moving from area to area, trying to reinforce, bringing on this division, bringing on these female Russian fighters and things like that. After you go through all of the fighting, then you roll a die to see if you won the game. So it's like there's a lot of thinking and attrition, and it's followed by just a die roll. So, it's not fulfilling as an educational, as a thought exercise, because it all comes down to chance, but it's a very immersive game about you keep pouring in more troops into Stalingrad, they keep fighting, they keep dying. So my number 4 is the card game Hell of Stalingrad, which I know you've mentioned, Fires of Midway
Same
before.
company.
Same designer.
That's very thematically immersive. You are right. That was my first Stalingrad game. Learned a lot about it from that.
Now, I see it says War is Hell series card game. Are there more of the same mechanic?
The Fires of Midway.
That is, the Fires of Midway is the same way. Huh, and just those two? No other ones?
That's all I know of so far.
What I know of.
Right.
Interesting. All right. Now, again, I am the lighter war game of the two here. Usually that's very self-evident, but I'm going to say it anyway because Memoir 44 East Front Pack. I still love the way that the different zones, left, center, right, works with Memoir and the Fog of War, and you can't always do what you want to do. And then the little additional packs that add in and tweak the main rule sets and give you a thematic layered feel. And I did see there's still some comments saying not a war game. We had a guy from Germany that was on that was basically saying not a war game.
Sure, it was in Belgium.
No, this is in Germany.
Oh, there's a story there.
All right.
So how much is in the Eastern Pack?
Oh boy,
a dozen scenarios.
Yeah, I don't even remember the scenario count.
Okay.
So, I mean, the big thing, of course, is they're giving you these T-34s and then some of the layering that goes on. And I'm trying to remember one of the other subtleties, but I can't remember it.
It's got, it abstracts the Russians' lack of command because Stalin killed so many of his leaders. They have this little disc of a commissar, and you have to play your cards a turn in advance, so you can't react to them as easily.
Okay.
So it's one of the nice little tweaks that I think they're able to do with that system. But,
yes, that was my first exposure to the Finns, to that. So that was something else I didn't mention on Red Winter. That was my only exposure. I had no interest really in it. I just got Red Winter because I kept hearing such glowing reviews on it, and it really got me interested on how amazing it was. So it really paid off. Great educational game. My number 4 is Circle of Fire. It is in Against the Odds magazine, issue number 41. Don't roll your eyes at magazine games. I understand. I've been that way with strategy and tactics before. Really a big fan of Against the Odds. This is designed, it says on the magazine, by Michael Ranella. If you look on BGG, it says Michael Ranella and Limbit Tover. He's their developer, and Mike told me that just as much Limbit's game as his because he put so much work into it. It covers the siege of Holm, and that was during 1941 when the Soviets did their counterattack. They tried to sweep around here and come back up and cut off the Russian supply, similar to what would go on later on at Stalingrad. They were pushing through like waist-high snow in 40-some below weather. It is an area impulse game. It follows the Storm over Arnhem model. And if you know Storm over Arnhem, you'll recognize a lot of similarities too, which is interesting because that's not usually Ranella goes off the operational level breakout Normandy system. But he did combine the sunset die roll into it. It's not necessarily the sun going down. It models the Soviets' lack of logistics. They were told, take the city and you can have all the supplies you want. It's a bit tough though. So that factors into the game. And he has lots of little thematic touches in it that matches this game well. As far as the magazine game, he's a really excellent writer on his background. So when you get a magazine, you're going to get the stories that accompany it. So it's like the ultimate designer notes. Only 8 pages of rules. It's not a very difficult game, but it's very well developed. Limbit's one of the best I've ever seen when I've played his games. Very well balanced. Hardly ever any errata. If you ever have any questions, you can go to their website, and he's very active about supporting on Consim World and on their website. So that's my number 4, Circle of Fire.
On a side note, Judd's done some standalone reviews with magazine games, folio stuff, and regular games that I'm editing now that'll be coming out also with Bonding with Board Games.
Oh, and Vassal Module. I did it. So it does exist.
Okay, my number 3 game is A Victory Lost. It's Crisis in the Ukraine. It's by Tetsuya Nakamura. This is a game, it's 1942, the winter of 1942, early 1943, where the Russians are trying to break through to Rostov. And this is a chit pull game. So it plays really quickly. It even plays pretty well solitaire. I'm not a big solitaire player, but it plays well solitaire because you're picking a chit for a headquarters unit, and then only the units within range of that headquarters can move. So it's not like you've got, most of the time, it's not like you've got to decide what happens everywhere and then the other guy gets to react. One time a turn, the Russians do get to move everybody that's in range of a headquarters. But that's not the norm for the game. It's a unbloody CRT. It's mostly push. And the Russians are trying to get to the different victory point cities, but it's always plays tense. It feels like it's a grosser scoring thing because, you know, units might be worth 1 point, the cities are worth 5 points. So it's like, oh, take the city and that's it. But it always plays pretty closely because they're trying to manage, the Germans are trying to manage their losses. So my number 3 East Front game is A Victory Lost. There is a sister game called A Victory Denied. Same kind of system. I prefer this one myself. I just think that I just enjoy the situation here a little more. But Victory Lost, my number 3 East Front.
And CRT's combat results table, so it uses
Right.
a lot of those.
Right.
Is there a lot of dice rolling with that?
No, not a lot.
Because I know there was, the Dice Tower did like top 10 combat systems, and CRT's got bagged on, and a guy wanted us to come on and like counter argue, and I'm like, nah. I mean, some people like CRTs, some people don't. But,
Okay.
You know, our CRTs.
It's odds, but trying to think.
Combat results table?
I'm just trying to think whether this one's odds-based or differential-based. Can't remember.
Well, see, that's where he's
Right.
good. I would have had no clue. You'll explain that sometime. Tide of Iron, the little breakout Stalingrad. Now, Tide of Iron, the key is that they, you know, the little figures that you put on, you can kind of squad build a little bit. And in this one, they've got, even the tiles are kind of ugly. I mean, everything's very gritty. It's designed to be that War of the Rats feel in Stalingrad. They have a hunger level. Sometimes if you're reaching starvation, you can't do certain things. So it's gritty, but I gotta admit, Stalingrad is where I always go to in literature, because I've always been real interested in, Paulus getting stuck in there, Hitler making him, I'm gonna forget the term, it's like Grand Marshal, but it's not Grand Marshal.
It was just Marshal.
Yeah, he makes him because no Field Marshal had ever surrendered, and all this stuff. And then, even the, supplying by air, and just the whole thing has always really, really interested me. So it's gritty, it's ugly, and Tide of Iron did do that with Stalingrad. So that's my number 3.
Something I didn't mention earlier is when games are out of print or what they're going to run. Sorry, I didn't do that. I'm a little out of practice. I think Red Winter is out of print. I always have a hard time. GMT seems like things go on P500 all the time. I checked it out. The Geek Marketplace are going 45 to 60. Circle of Fire still in print. It's from last year.
People love when we talk about out of print games.
Well, the problem is the print runs are so short. There's times we could do games and they'd be out of print by the time we got to.
So buy the game, and you've got a secondary market. You can always sell it.
Yeah, plus 45 to 60 on the secondary market. That's cheaper. You can get them retail.
Right.
Okay, my number 3 is Fighting Formations, GMT. Chad Jensen's the designer, and it was 2011. It covers Grossdeutschland Motorized Infantry Division. This is not Combat Commander with vehicles, as some have tried to say. It's not even close. That's as absurd as saying Empire of the Suns, we the people with carriers. Just because the same guy designed it, it's nothing close to it. It's a very clever. It's really hard to put your finger on it. It has this, the thing that shines on it for me is a command system. It's got this command matrix with various orders you can do, and it's got this, you put these little cubes on there and you pull the cube, and you've got this initiative track going back and forth, and you give up so much initiative to do this order. And if it ends up on your side at the end of everything, you still, at the end of all your actions, you get to go again until it pushes to the other side. So you're managing this initiative and your commands. I don't know, it's almost a Euro-y type of feel to it. It's probably abstract and something I can't wrap my head around, but all I know is it's really fun. And then you also have these little command centers on the map that have so much radius, and if you're within range, it doesn't cost you any initiative for units, or otherwise it costs more initiative. So while you're maneuvering around with your units and firing, you're also trying to manage your initiative with the orders you're given. It has about 10 scenarios. The only weakness I'd say is there's 2 really big map scenarios. They take quite a while, probably a little longer than they're worth, but the rest are pretty good right size. Tactical game in nature. And like I said, it's really just about that command system.
Now you said it's got a Euro feel, but it's really fun.
The command system.
I've never seen you say that.
No, actually I did. Martin Wallace's Waterloo.
I think Greg's got a war game that's got like a party game feel.
Yeah, sign me up.
Oh, yay!
But
no, all over that.
You hear that a lot about the, and I don't know if Chad's ever said anything about what it's supposed to represent. I haven't studied it that close. I just know it's a lot of fun to play. It's not, it's not trying to be Band of Brothers or ASL as far as how it works tactically, but it is very tactical in how you're trying to maneuver for position, use the terrain to your advantage.
It's all hex based.
Yes. So there is a follow-up game coming, by the way. It's because it's been a while, 4 years, but it's covering the 29th Infantry Division. So I think he said he wants to have it ready for pre-order at the end of this year. It's going to be a system of games. So that's my number 3, Fighting Formations. But
you're right, there are other Euro games that have that mechanic of the other guy. You get initiative until you pass the other guy.
Yes. So, one more thing. One of the most amazing rule books I've ever read. So I said Red Winter. Yeah, you're throwing around all these fun games. I've heard Jensen's really good. I've never read Combat Commander's rule book. I've just heard it's good. This thing's phenomenal. Really made this game easy.
Okay. My number 2 game is Russian Campaign. It's an old game, 1974, by John Edwards. That, to me, is a enjoyable one-sitting classical game of the entire Eastern Front campaign. I don't do a lot of those, but I have Red Star Rising, Dark Valley. I enjoy Russian Campaign more than that. It's the elite Germans with a lot of their armor, the extra movement, fighting against the winter, fighting against the Russian huge supply network. You're trying to cut off the Murmansk convoys and everything. So my number 2 East Front game is the one for the entire campaign that I enjoy the most. It's Russian Campaign. I know it's been re-released by L2 Design Group. Not sure of what changes were involved when they re-released it, but Russian Campaign, my number 2.
The last edition went through the roof. It was like $200 some, I think, if you want it. I've heard the components are really sharp.
The L2?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you can get the Avalon Hill ones, because they mass produce those games so much back then. We're now thousands a good number for a game. Back then it was, pushing 100,000. And that is one that has aged incredibly well for a 1975 game.
My number 2 is Band of Brothers, Ghost Panzer. Another thumbs up over here. Tactical war game. They do a real nice job on really modeling the idea that you're going to fix enemy unit with some fire, pin it, and then you're going to maneuver on it. So it's really just the standard tactics that come out of even modern day soldiering, which really all got its base in World War II. And it's kind of like a party game, right?
Yeah.
I actually think a little party war game might not be bad. A little grenade throwing going on.
Yeah. I like to take a flamethrower to a lot of party games.
There you go.
Okay.
That's right.
My number 2 is Holdfast Russia. Worthington Games came out last year. Mike and Grant Wiley's the designers. It covers Barbarossa up to January of 43. Basically, the idea is if you're not going to win as Germany by that point, you're not going to win. It's a block game, very easy. There's a 5-minute tutorial on their website on how to play this game. It's that easy. It took me about 10 minutes to teach people in person. I'm a little slower. It takes about 3 hours to play. Block game, 1 block per hex. I probably said this before. Marco Arnardo kind of gave the statement that boiled this down best. He says like they took every East Front game and boiled off the rules one by one until they got to a point where if they took one more rule away, it would no longer be an East Front game. It's to its bare essence, but you still have the winners, the mud, the encirclements, the guards, the Russian winners, Stukas. It's in there. The fortresses. The idea of the game is Leningrad, Stalingrad, Moscow. Whoever has 2 of them at the end of the game wins it. Leningrad probably falls easier than it did historically since it didn't fall. But it really works really well as a game. Every time I get this thing, it usually comes down to like a die roll. It's very tense to the end. My number 2, East Front. I had that in my top 5 World War II games. You've heard the phrase games that kill other games. This was kind of one of them. I still like East Front, but at 6-hour scenarios, it's just hard to get to the table. This one I can get in one setting, so it's become my game of choice for that, especially in block games. My number 2, Holdfast.
Okay, my number 1, I was indecisive. I also play and enjoy a lot of Stalingrad games. I wanted to choose between Turning Point Stalingrad and Storm over Stalingrad, which are 2 area movement games, approximately the same scale. I decided to go with Storm over Stalingrad because I find that this plays a little quicker, and this is a card-assisted game. There are cards that instead of giving the Germans the opportunity to fire and then move, there's a card that might let them do it once or twice during the game. There's not sewer movement all the time, but the Russians might have the card that would let them re-infiltrate an area using sewer movement. So Storm over Stalingrad is my number 1 East Front game. It's the part of the reason why I like it is because the victory conditions are adjustable. There are places along the riverfront that the Germans have to get to. If I'm playing against a rookie, I might have to take 5 spaces. If I'm playing against somebody who's as skilled as me, we might bid it down where it's only 3 or maybe even only 2 spaces. So it's scalable for the skill level of the players, but it gives you it's like a really clean version of an area movement game, and I love going after Mamayev Kurgan.
So you can handicap it.
Right.
How long
You get an
does
extra
it
card if you take it.
Oh, well, I know when they had it as a tournament up at at the World Board Gaming Championships, I think they had it in 3-hour rounds.
That's what I was going to say about 3 hours.
Storm over Stalingrad, my number 1 East Front game.
What's interesting, Stalingrad seems to loan itself to Area Impulse because there's a 3rd game coming out on that later this year. It's like Volga on the Verdun on the Volga or something. But yeah, it's the only one I've seen multiples on the same for the same mechanic.
My number 1, probably not much of a surprise. It's the
B-17.
Yes. Little did you know they flew out of Stalingrad. Goering was like, you know what? Maybe these planes could actually make it in. He wishes he had something with 4 engines. Conflict of Heroes, and I'm going to cheat a little bit. Both Storms of Steel, which was 1943 Kursk, and the original The Awakening the Bear, which is really, the Operation Barbarossa and all of that. Tactical level, love it, love it, love it. They're supposed to be coming out with a second printing on Storms of Steel, which again is all the heavy tanks, 1943, Kursk, and everything else going around. So, Conflict of Heroes, my number 1.
Probably not a big surprise. My number 1, Ghost Panzer. Let's see, what was that? 2012?
Talk about the reprint.
2013. Oh yeah, they ran a Kickstarter campaign with mounted boards, upgraded. They one of the last Kickstarter stretch goals that made it was, I guess they're going to do. I don't know how familiar is your area. The ASL like has the sheets or like individual sheets for your campaigns or something instead of all collected in a book. I don't know. Anyways,
you can.
I know you're talking about you
like
mean like the
individual
scenario
cards.
packs
Yeah.
for us for a campaign? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Right.
Stuff like that. But yeah, mounted boards, upgraded counters, things like that. Yeah, I backed it. Yeah, it covers the Eastern Front. It's mild upgrades to the what do you call it? Proficiency system. I said in an earlier video I wasn't sure if I liked it. Yeah, once I got used to it, it's a whole lot better. Same system. The thing that I've always liked about this is I've always said in some way or another, it seems like all the tactical games are trying to balance some level of realistic tactics versus chaos. One end you got up front, which is like pure chaos. This is pure tactics. I've never seen anything hit the tactical strategy as realistic for, find them, fix them, flank them, and finish them. Parts of that are abstracted. So if you're a guy who's into real detail, there's going to be parts that are missing for you because like the melee system is pretty simple. But it really focuses on that. Like I was teaching a guy that this year, and he said, "What would I do now?" And I said, "Well, assuming you were on the battlefield and you didn't run away, what would you do?" And he said, "Well, I do this." I go, "Well, here's how you do that." I mean, it's just that's how it is. It's that realistic in its tactics. Extremely simple rule book. The original Band of Brothers was like 6 pages, I think, had you playing infantry scenarios. A little bit more because it added some stuff specifically for this front, but it says right in there, Screaming Eagles only, Ghost Panzer only.
Well, and the Kickstarter had the original Band of Brothers redone and mounted.
Yes.
Ghost Panzer, and then
Texas Arrows.
Texas Arrows.
And the original Band of Brothers got upgraded counters for the new proficiency system. You could either, I think the Texas Arrows had a set where you could go back and put it with your other, or you could order a new Screaming Eagles with all the goodies.
Now, are they doing anything with the old breed yet? The Pacific?
I think it's his next one up. It has artillery, it has weapons, so it has smoke, all kinds of things like that. This one, the scenarios are bigger because you got a lot more combined actions. That was 101st Airborne. There wasn't a lot of armor scenarios. There'd be a little bit, not on their side, obviously. There might be some backup coming in, but this is a lot bigger scenarios where you're combining the infantry and the armor. That's my number 1, Ghost Panzer.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. Anything else?
No,
We're good.
All right. See you guys.
Later.
HAMTAG.
HAMTAG.